I think there's a switch. Sit anywhere you should be up front, or you can sit with us wherever you want. Amy. Hand her breakfast.
We're almost there.
Kristen, tell them find a seat.
Please find a seat. There's still a few seats left if you're looking for a seat. We have the second row over here. There's one next to Jessica. There's some there next to Kim. There's a bench. Come in and meet some friends. We all remember church where you shake hands next to you on Sunday morning. Ask them how they are. We can do that now.
This is recording. That's the back. This is only one else.
Oh, sorry. What? 1 second. Music. My bad. Sorry.
Oh wow, this is okay. I put this together last minute, meaning I just have some random notes. I think Dad would be proud of that. He was a big fan of doing stuff last minute. You can ask his colleagues. Lori knows that very intimately. So in honor of Dad, I don't really have this planned. So let's see how it goes. Thank you all for coming today, especially those who made a long drive from Birmingham or Atlanta and people who flew in, changed their flights early from vacation in Colorado, flew down from Massachusetts and DC and Florida. It really means a lot. For those who don't know why we decided to have his memorial randomly at a pavilion, it's not very random. This pavilion was actually created and is in honor of my granddaddy, Dad's dad, John Tcherneshoff, and we had his memorial here 8 years ago. So we talked about it with Dad before he passed and thought this would be a perfect place to honor Dad also. And thank you everyone for your great shirts. We have so many amazing Alabama shirts, and I know most of you wearing them are Auburn fans. So roll tide and thank you. I told Lori, Dad's colleague, that if he had known what it would have taken for her to wear an Alabama shirt, he probably would have died sooner. And I did not follow the dress code for a specific reason. Dad knows I'm an Alabama fan, first and foremost. But secondly, I'm wearing a Dumb and Dumber shirt. It was one of Dad's favorite movies. We bought these matching shirts 3 years ago when Grandma and Papa John were visiting us. Dad was pumped about it. Anything he could do with me, he wanted to do. So we got these cool shirts, and then he proceeded to get mad at me because I wouldn't wear them to nice restaurants with him. We went to a very fancy restaurant, which my boyfriend told me last summer. Dad was so upset because he wore his Dumb and Dumber shirt, but I wouldn't. I wanted to wear a dress, you know, it's a nice restaurant. This is what he wanted me to wear. But I wore it a lot with him matching. I wore it when he got out of the hospital one day, and we had these matching shirts, so I wore this in honor of him. Okay, so when Dad realized that he was most likely terminally ill last year, he wanted to watch all of his favorite movies with me and Mom. And so last September, we spent a week watching all of his favorite movies every night. Mom and I are not movie people, but Dad is, so it was a long week. But we watched a lot of great movies. We watched Forrest Gump, of course. We watched Patch Adams, which Dad loved more than anything. And one of Dad's, sorry, I'm not used to being in front of a microphone. I just have a loud Tcherneshoff voice. One of Dad's favorite parts of that movie, if you haven't seen it, is when Patch Adams is trying to make someone feel more lighter about passing away. And so they make jokes of other ways you can say someone has died. Dad thought this was the greatest thing ever since he had just found out he was probably gonna pass soon. And so he wanted me and Mom to sit with him and come up with a list of saying funny ways that he has died. So, I will now read that list that Dad helped me put together. So, thank you for joining us. Kirk Tcherneshoff is no longer with us. He has ceased to be, bereft of life. He rests in peace. He has kicked the bucket, hopped the twig, bit the dust, snuffed it, breathed his last, started pushing a daisy, paying his debt to nature, enjoying life's big sleep, blinking for an exceptionally long period of time, become a worm buffet, one of our favorites, shuffled off this mortal coil, and has gone to meet the great head of light in the sky. And I would be amiss if I did not read that for Dad. He really wanted us to host a Facebook competition where we had people submit their greatest ideas of how he has died. Mom and I turned that down, but it was one of his last requests. So if you do want to put in a way Dad has died to Facebook, he would love it. But Dad really wasn't optimistic about everything, as we know. He loved finding the bright side of things. He was one of the funniest people around. He was a blast to hang out with. He'd just have you in stitches laughing. And I'll start wrapping up soon, I'm sorry. We have a handful of people lined up today to share stories of Dad as a friend and as a brother and as a colleague, but I'm the one person that has the opportunity to share about Dad as a father. Oh no, okay. I was so confident, doing so well. So I know a lot of people say this, but I think most of you know that Dad really was one of my best friends. And I'm really lucky to have a father that I know, without a doubt, unequivocally, just absolutely adored me. My dad loved me more than anything. And that's a big loss I feel every day, because he gave me so much dang love and really boosted me up. My ego's feeling a bit down without him. I really loved him, and we were so close growing up, me and Mom and Dad. We were the three musketeers. We did pretty much everything together. I was quite nerdy, really introverted, had a big unibrow. I hung out with my parents a lot, partially by decision and partially because the other kids forced me to. But my parents were so cool. They were great parents. They were very creative. One of my earliest memories is Mom and Dad setting up train stations around the house. So I would ride on the back of Dad's wheelchair and pretend he was a train, and he'd drive around the house and take me to different train stops where Mom would be the conductor that would greet me, like welcoming me to Atlanta or to Paris, or trying to put on accents. They were probably bad, I don't remember, Mom. It was a blast, and at birthday parties, Dad would have me hold on to the back of his wheelchair in my roller skates, and friends would make a Congo line, and we'd cruise around the park in his wheelchair. He put a lot of other parents to shame. He was a fun guy. I loved him so much. And when I got older, we'd have calls maybe once a month when I had left home and lived in wherever I was living at the time. Name your place. We'd play chess together online and spend hours talking on the phone, playing on Facebook games. Dad loves Facebook. We'd play for hours chess and crap talking, as you know. Anyone who's hung out with Dad, he can really crap talk. We'd have a blast playing chess for hours at a time. Anyways, I could share so many memories and stories, but I know I've taken up my time here. So I'll wrap this up and give the floor to others, but I do want to share one thing that I shared with Dad right before, the month before he passed, when he was getting a bit nervous about passing and what it would feel like. And I think this actually comes from a Mexican tradition, burial tradition, but it was made known in English writing through a neuroscientist called David Eagleman, and he talks about the comfort of 3 deaths. So when we die, we don't actually die once is the philosophy. We have 3 deaths. 1 is when we pass and we no longer breathe. 2 is today, when we have a memorial, when everyone honors you. And the 3rd death is when no one says your name again. And based on everyone who's here today, and so many people coming so far, I think we have a really, really long time till Dad has his 3rd death. And that gives me so much comfort. Thank you all for coming. So we have 5 or 6 speakers. They'll probably talk less than me. I kind of went over my planned time, but I'm going to pull the dead dad card for that one. But first up, I want to ask Robert to come up. So, hi. Robert is my godfather and uncle, well, honorary. I call him Uncle Robert, and one of Dad's oldest, best friends. And I'll let you take it away. And I hope I can give you this mic. Maybe I go down here? Do you think you
can? Well, y'all can hear me.
Yeah, you're loud. You're loud.
Pretty dang loud. Kurt and I met in 1989 or 1990. My first real job was with United Cerebral Palsy as a national director in Washington, D.C. And one of my sites was Birmingham, Alabama. And guess who got Kirk got that position. I'm pulling the people up because I had Alabama, Pittsburgh, and Oakland, California. So I'm talking to Kirk. We don't know each other from Adam. And Kirk swears Fort Payne is the center of the universe. No doubt about it. But he told me he wants to be really just show off. And he's like, Robert, we've got the best show on earth down here. It's called The Simpsons. I said, you dumbass, it's a syndicated show around the world. I'm glad y'all can pick it up. But this is going to be a rated PG. We love playing jokes on each other. We always play jokes. And one of my best jokes was that the first SEC championship was played down here. And I brought my friend Todd down here. And Todd had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. He's about 4 foot tall. And he had short arms. And we were staying at Kurt and April's apartment in Alabama. I'm Birmingham. And Todd's like, oh my God, how does he wipe his ass? and I said, well, I've been there before. I said, well, you had shag carpet. And it's already brown and speckled. So I said, and for 2 days, every time Todd went to the bathroom, Kirk would follow him. And nobody knew that when I said it was so funny. Well, I think the same weekend, this scooter can hold a case of beer. So it was a long time ago. And I always have a sipper cup. And you all know that I'm not going to be politically correct. Crippled people can have blankets. They always had blankets over their lap. So I had the blanket hiding the beer. It had nothing to do with my lap. So I said, hey, April, my cup is empty. She said, what am I going to do? She said, there's a cop right behind me. I said, well, bring under the blanket. Just open my cup and open the beer and pour it. And she started pouring. I started yelling, and she kept pouring. She poured whole 12-ounce beer right in my crotch. It was the coldest day in Birmingham for 2 years. I'm very proud of my goddaughter. We were down in Destin one time, visiting, and she was just starting to crawl. And because I crawled most of my life, so I got down there, and my bragging point of her life is I've taught her how to crawl. We would always visit Kurt, Nabel, and Kristen in Cape Coral. And Kurt always wanted to, I don't know what you call it, but anyway, we got down there, and April was teaching, and Kurt says, jump in the van. Lynn and I jumped in the van. We drove 2 hours to the middle of Florida to pick up a Mustang 5.0 convertible for April. So he said, can you drive it up? I said, hell yeah, I can drive it. Anyway,
Can you have a drink? Yes. Is it beer or regular?
Don't spill it.
Anyway, it had a full tank. I put the top down, I put the air conditioner on, and every time he would get in front of me, I'd blow his doors off. We got back to Cape Coral, he said, well, what kind of gas mileage you got? I said, I don't know, but you got a quarter of a tank. It was full. So the next time we came down, he had a pontoon boat. Good God, Lord, what did it be? Anyway, we get outside the lot, and he's driving. We needed gas. So, Kurt, we're about for, here's my van from the gas station. Kurt goes to go forward, and he accidentally puts all his weight forward. We're going 35 miles an hour toward a floating gas station. I thought we were all going to meet Jesus that day. But thank God, poor April jumped up. She came from the front of the boat, back of the boat, ripped it back in reverse, stripped the hell out of the gear. But the good thing about it, we lived. And I'll never forget another time we came down, and he bought me a Corvette. That you didn't have that long. I guess because I drove it. I dogged it. But anyway, I'm not worried about time. I want to roast Kurt, and Kurt knows it. So, anyway, we took cruises all the time together. We loved our cruises, good God. But Kurt was the best daggone three-card player in the world. So he would always sit in the first seat, and I would always sit in the last seat, because I never wanted to sit beside him. So he would say, Watson, you need to put $25 or $50 up each time. You'll make more. I said, well, I'll lose more too.
Yeah.
But he definitely lived a hard life. Lord, me. When Kurt got in his second accident, about 19 years ago, give or take, he was in Birmingham Hospital. And I'll never forget, because April called me and said, Kurt doesn't want to live anymore. I said, the hell with that, I got on the plane. I was in Birmingham, spent 10 days beside him on his, at his bed. I didn't stay in his hotel. I stayed at the Marriott across the street at night. But we argued so much it was the year that Obama was winning the primary. And we just went back and forth all the time. We had a good time. I mean, we fought, we argued, but we always laughed, and we always had fun. But I'll never forget, I went to PT with him, and they were stretching Avery's arm and Avery's leg, and they're like, I said, excuse me, do you know he was a quad before he got here? They need to read the damn chart. No, one day, his wife Baker was always there for him. Thick and thin, and throughout him. And his daughter, Kristen, was always there. One thing that I will always agree with Kirk is quality of life. Ever since I've known Kirk, for 34 years, we talked about this concept called quality of life. None of us wanted to be at the doctor every day, at the hospital every day. We knew friends that lived that way. We didn't want to live that way. We wanted to live our life at the fullest. So that's one thing among several thousand things that we did agree with. But I remember when we were in Cape Coral and we were shopping, and we went into this stupid souvenir shop, and I was with Kristen. She was about 7 or 8, and I wanted to play with Kristen, so I started putting female stuff on, and I would put these blouses on and then these skirts on over my shorts, and Kristen had a great time. But,
It's actually the first story I told me about yet.
Oh, really? Oh, great. Yeah, okay. I'm a cross-dresser. just over my underwear. But last story I really wanted to tell was we were in Orlando at a conference, and Kurt and I, it's no secret, I guess you could tell, when we got off work, we drank. And we were at this bar, and he introduced me to this thing called Jägermeister. I thought it was like a mousetrap or something. I never heard of the Jägermeister. But we started downing those Jägermeisters. Kurt started slurring. And now, I always slur, so I get a 10-point handicap. So, I always slur. So anyway, it got to the point, Kirk could hardly drive his wheelchair, and his special care attendant was at the hotel about 4 blocks away. And I said, oh, good God, how are we going to do this? So I turned my scooter around, turned my front light on, I turned the light on. I said, follow the light. So 4 blocks, it was a long damn 4 blocks. And we followed the light. Well, I have no doubt. In his last minutes, he followed the light to heaven. And he's up there with his father. And they're doing whatever they love to do. And then he's up there with a lot of us, our other close friends. And I'm so happy, Kurt lives a life worth living. And we need to take a page out of his life that, you know what? If somebody asks you to do something, do it. You want to go on the cruise? Yeah. You want to go skydiving? Yeah. You want to jump off a bridge? Yeah. But now I have fun for the dad. But I mean, I'm not stupid. But you have to always say yes. But I'll tell you what, Kristen, April, and Kurt, definitely my Southern family. I've loved them to death. We've been there through good times and bad, and we pulled through it all. So, Kirk, buddy, this is for you. I love you, and I love your family, and I always take care of them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great day.
Robert, I think you almost sent my mom to an early grave heart attack over those stories you shared. Okay, we have a handful of other people, or four something, but we'll have more professional and G-rated stories coming in, I think. I don't know, I didn't screen these speeches, I probably should have. No, thank you, Uncle Robert, that was great. Blake D. That Blake. Yes, you're up. So Blake is one of my oldest, actually probably my oldest friend. He was born 6 months after me, and his mom and dad were best friends with my parents growing up and always were together, and I'll let you take it away.
All right. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Well, I, like her, followed in her footsteps and did not come prepared for speech, so we're just going to roll with it, but I do have some memories I'd like to share. Obviously, she mentioned that, you know, we're old childhood friends, and we were friends since we were in diapers, but there was a period of time where I didn't really get to see them too much, so when my mom would always talk about them all the time, and he was like a man and a myth for a little while until we got to meet him until I was a little bit older. But when I finally did, he just welcomed me just as a adult to an adult, just welcomed me in his arms as just a part of the family, and was just very warm and hospitable. And there was one thing, I guess a quality I really liked about him when I first got to actually introduce myself to him again, was there was a trip with, I was very spontaneous, and I know they are too, which is why we get along so well. And so there was one time we were down there in Florida at their house, and I was like, let's go to Miami. And so he was like, oh, let's go to Miami. So we woke up at 4 in the morning and drove all the way down there, and just went to the beach and had like a couple cocktails and kind of had something to eat and just talk. Well, he might have gotten a little too tipsy, and he decided to go on the sidewalk and just floor his chair just as fast as he could, and he was starting to ramp on the sidewalk, and I was chasing after him, and I was like, how am I going to explain to April that her husband's on the side of the road just off the chair? And I was like, oh, this is going to be a mess. But and so I caught up to him, and I got on to him about it for a little bit because I was just worried. But you know, that moment reminded me about him was that he just defied his expectations, and he just proved you wrong on basically anything that you thought of him. Honestly, he was just he's like, he might be handicapped, but he will tell you that he can do otherwise. So, and he was always just very strong-willed and very determined, and I appreciate that quality about him as well. Because once he set his mind to something, it was just, that was it. You know, it was said and done. But honestly, those are the memories that I have fondest of him, just because he's just a strong person and strong individual, and I admire him a lot. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Blake. Okay, next up we have Steve. Where are you, Steve? In a great Hawaiian shirt. You're somewhere. There you are. Come on down. I feel like I'm giving out awards or something. You deserve an award. Steve is one of Dad's colleagues, but first and foremost, one of his closest friends. They talk so regularly, one of his best friends, and Steve came all the way down from Massachusetts to be here with us and has a memory or a word to share.
Thank you. I just have a moment to share with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm hard of hearing. I can't hear how loud my voice is. It's just a moment. It's not funny. Kirk tried for 20 years to teach me something, and I just want to share with you the moment when I began to see what he's talking about. We were working in a college town It's called Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's in a place called Harvard Square. There are a million restaurants and gift shops and everything there. Walking along the sidewalk, there was a man sitting on the sidewalk, on the concrete, begging. He had his hat in front of him on the sidewalk, and there were a couple of coins in the hat. And I did what I usually do, you know, try to not make eye contact with this guy, sort of look the other way and kind of get as far away from him as I could as I passed by on the sidewalk, which I did. Walked around just ignoring this man. And I got about 10 paces out, and I said, wait a minute, that guy did not look like your usual beggar on the sidewalk. I mean, he was very well groomed, and he looked like he could have been a college professor. And I said, why am I judging this person? And so I turned around and went back 10 paces, and I put a $20 bill in his hat. And he looked up at me and said, thank you for not objectifying me.
That was a mic drop there, Steve. Okay, oh, sorry, I got overwhelmed there. Peter Pettish. Oh, you stood up. Perfect. So Peter's gonna come up and say a word. Peter also knew Dad through work, and a lot of Dad's best friends and closest friends were colleagues, which I think says a lot about Dad and how friendly and overwhelming with love he was. So Peter.
Like underneath. No, you don't have to do that. That's okay. Don't worry.
Turn it off?
That's great.
Better?
Yeah.
Why? Okay, because the wind was coming His job, that's how I got to know Trevor's job and my job, where they intersected. But his job was to find barriers and eliminate barriers. And that was his vocation. But in his life, he did the same thing with people. And that's how he comported himself in his relationships. And that's how we met. We met him about 23 years ago at an inspection in Maryland at this place called the American Cafe. And he was the expert on the other side of the case. And I didn't know what I was doing on a case like that. I do now, but I did know one thing. At the end of his inspection and pointing out all the different barriers in this place, I said, he's probably right, and I know one thing. I want him to be my expert. And so he was for the next 20 plus years. And we had a lot of adventures. But what Kirk did so effectively, we had coffee after that first inspection. And he just draws these connections with people. He just brings people in. And that's how he eliminates the human barrier, spiritual barrier. You know, he taught me another thing. I made the mistake once of calling him a disability rights advocate. And he corrected me. And he said, no, Peter. Or, wait, I'm sorry. No, Peter. That's a little better. I'm a civil rights advocate. And that's how he lived his life. And he walked the walk in all ways of civil rights. And he's a civil rights icon as far as I'm concerned. And that really clicked with me, and it opened up a whole new perspective. That was an epiphany. he had a lighter side, as I think we all know. Thanks to Robert. Thanks to Kristen. And we often could finish one another's jokes, even bad ones. I was with him one day for a 7-hour deposition. He was my expert in this EEOC case against a chain restaurant. They all operate 24 hours a day. You might recognize their name. But after the end of the deposition, he looked at me, and we had been to a Belgian restaurant the night before, and ironically, it was a fancy place in Washington, D.C. We had been out front in the restaurant doing our deposition preparation over many Belgian beers, and only to discover what happens after you have a lot of Belgian beer. You got to use the bathroom, and of course the bathroom was not accessible. Anyway, he gets through the deposition the next day, and he says, "Peter, what do you say we have another one of them Belgian beers? Would you like one?" And I said, would I? And of course, Kirk finished the joke. Ehrlich. That was Kirk. Boundless energy, optimism, a little healthy dose of skepticism, thank goodness. I'm just proud to call him my hero, my friend, and I'm lucky to have loved him. Thanks.
One more from the friend and colleague category. Blake Watts. I think most of you here know Blake Watts, so I don't have to introduce him, but he's a childhood Fort Payne guy. We went to high school together, and has always been a close friend of the family, and then got really close with Dad when he started working at Tcherneshoff Consulting and took over as like an honorary son. So I'll let you close out and hand it over to Amy for the other family.
Hey everyone. I had jotted down some things like some of the others today and wanted to kind of go by that list, but earlier today I was like, I'm just going to wing it like Kirk did, because he really did always wing everything. I mean, we could have the most important presentation for a group of people, and he would just get up there and say exactly what he needed to. That was Kirk. But I just want to speak to what Kirk meant to me and kind of how I got to know Kirk and our journey as friends and colleagues. Known Kirk since I was a little kid. Not really well, but I knew Kirk. He was around. He was related to Will. That's kind of how I knew him. And then, you know, as I got older, closer to 16, 17, he was around the golf course more. He'd come watch us play golf as much as possible. Usually ask us to gamble. We like to do that. You know, bet us $5 we won't hit the green, that kind of thing. Then it got into us playing cards together when I was 16, 17, so that was fun too. And that's kind of how he got the nickname Frosty. So we were actually having a card game at my parents' house. A lot of people were over there, and it was a cold night. Everybody had gotten there but Kirk. Kirk wasn't there yet. And yeah, Kirk comes wheeling in, and he's got a scarf going all the way around his neck, almost up to his eyes. And he's got snow all over his head. And so somebody at the card table just says, "Hey, Frosty the Snowman's here." So Frosty kind of stuck from there on. And even in my phone, it says Frosty or Kirk. But yeah, fast forward a little bit, and about a little over 6 years ago, Kirk called me and he said, "I've got a position open at Tcherneshoff Consulting, wanted to see if you'd be interested." I said, "Yeah, I'll come sit down with you and talk to you about it. I'm kind of looking for a way out of my current profession." Had no idea what he did. No idea. But I respected Kirk, I liked Kirk. So we sat down, he kind of explained, what the ADA is, the Americans with Disabilities Act, what he does involving that, and a little bit about his passion for the work. So after a 30-minute conversation, I was convinced. I took a huge pay cut to come work for him. But you know what? It has helped me so much financially. He has given me a lot. I said I took that pay cut, but he always promised all of these things financially, and he always meant that. But that wasn't the most important thing about the work. I'm going to try not to get emotional here. Kirk's most valuable attributes as a friend was that he never judged me for anything I'd ever done. He never judged anybody else that I ever saw. You could be who you were, you could tell him anything on this earth, and he wasn't going to judge you for it. He was going to sit back, he was going to listen, and he was going to give great advice. He really was one of my best friends. I called him after everything. Give me just a second.
Take your time.
Just got done playing in a golf tournament, and on my way home, he was one of the people I wanted to call. He's still in my phone and my favorites. I can't take that out. He was just a great person. Always gave me great advice with everything. But yeah, that's all I want to say today. But I did wear my Alabama shirt for her. And I'm going to go out on a roll tide.
Hi everyone, last but not least. And Kirk and I shared a lot of things in common, but me being spontaneous was never going to happen. So I have printed, typed notes. So for those of you who don't know me, a lot of people here. Wow, this is fantastic. I'm Kirk and Susan's baby sister, Amy, also known as Mom's favorite. Thanks so much to everyone for being here to celebrate Kirk's life with us today. Thanks to Robert and Peter and Steve and Blake, and of course Kristen for sharing fun stories and memories with all of us. When Kristen asked me if I would close things out today, I was really kind of torn between trying to, go sort of more serious or more funny. So I'm going to try to bridge the gap and do both. I'll start with the serious side. So I was a baby when Kirk was injured. And so his early advocacy took place during a really formative time of my life. And I took notice. I followed Kirk's lead and got a degree in social work just like he did. I'm the director of advocacy for a pretty big nonprofit organization in Atlanta. His life's work is so it informs everything that I do in my life's work. I was teaching for a number of years in at a different school that's not represented here today by any of our colors or shirts. But I was teaching master's level social work classes, and I invited Kirk several times to come and be a guest speaker in my classes. And every single time he challenged my students, challenged them to look at things differently, challenged them to have a different perspective. And he was always doing that with me too. We had a lot of opportunities to talk at length about various social injustices. And the thing that I loved was that, Kirk didn't really let me off the hook. If I was forgetting to use people first language, or if I was being short-sighted on a topic, he would really talk to me about that, but he didn't call me out for being wrong. He simply called me in to consider a different point of view. Those conversations lasted until we were on the way to the airport the last time I saw Kirk alive, and we were, I'm like, Kirk, I got to get out of the van, like I got to catch a flight, and we were still like in a heated conversation about a particular social justice topic, and so I love that just carried throughout my entire life. His last request of me was to keep fighting the good fight, and I promised that I would. His guidance, his mentorship, his encouragement will always be at the heart of what I do as a social worker. The following words that I want to share are not mine. They are written by poet Ralph Waldo Emerson, and I just feel like they encompass the indelible mark that Kirk left on this earth. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty and find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know that one life has breathed easier because you have lived here. This is to have succeeded. But before we promote Kirk to sainthood, let me also mention that he was an obnoxious older brother. And one of the ways that he liked to sort of exert his older brother status when I was little was on Christmas morning. So our house at the time had bedrooms down at the end of the hall, and our living room is in the front of the house. And so to get to Santa and Christmas morning and stockings and presents, you had to go all the way down the very narrow hallway. Well, guess who got at the front and took his sweet, sweet time taking that chair as slowly as humanly possible, with me jumping up and down behind him, let me go, let me go, let me go. And then he would just stop, and we would sit there for a minute, and it was infuriating for me. And I would be like, Mom, seriously, and I mean, what could they do? There was, he was going to do what he was going to do. Also on the funny side, I think, and I'm sure everyone here can identify, the hardest I have ever laughed in my entire life was during a family cruise when Kirk told a particular joke that was maybe a little bit raunchy. I know it's shocking to all of you. But I mean, I'm not talking about like I laughed hard. I'm talking about like face turns red, tears are streaming down your face, you fall out of your chair, like you've got stomach cramp, you know what I mean? Like it was that kind of laugh. And I would never try to repeat the joke because my mom's sitting right here in front of me, and I can't be as funny as Robert. So, but the point is not the joke. The point is the joy that Kirk got from making people laugh that hard, right? He would find any time, any place, any person to be, jovial and funny, even at the hospice intake appointment with the hospice nurse. He's cracking jokes. And April and Eric and I are like, really? Like, is this the time? But of course it was the time. Like that, of course, it was absolutely perfect. His love of life didn't end with jokes or good stories. He also loved music in all forms. So I hope you were appreciating some of the playlists that we curated. We'll crank that up here again in just a minute. But Kirk loved attending live concerts, singing karaoke at the top of his lungs, dancing with Mom listening to Kristen rehearse Chopin for umpteen hours, competing in 70s rock trivia competitions, all of it. So I thought it would really be fitting to just close out our program today by quoting a Jimmy Buffett lyric. So don't get too excited, it's a clean lyric. I mean, you know, Kirk can take that up with me if he doesn't like it when we see each other again down the road. But Buffett explained once that the song titled "He Went to Paris" was inspired by the story of a Spanish Civil War veteran named Eddie Bukowski, whom Buffett had met at a club in Chicago. They were both musicians and kind of hit it off. Eddie had actually relearned how to play the piano after his hand was amputated due to an injury he sustained in the war. So Eddie, insert Kirk, lived life to the fullest. He was adventurous. He loved hard. He made mistakes. He experienced difficult and trying circumstances. He pursued his passions. He told engaging stories because he wanted to be sure that his life was never defined by one incident, but rather by the totality of life and all of its complicated beauty. And the way he summed it up, which made it into the song, was, "Some of it's magic, some of it's tragic, but I had a good life all the way." Thank you. And we're done. Oh, that was all. Sorry. Yeah, we're gonna turn on the jams that we have some of Dad's favorite songs. That's like 40, 50 of them, so you don't have to stay for the whole playlist. But you're more than welcome. The pavilion's ours as long as we stay. They kind of have like a, what's it, when you squat, it's a squatter privilege. So however long we're here, we have the pavilion. There's some great photos the family put together, some that we have even seen. We have a guest book if you want to sign it. The people who got here at the beginning and signed it, the flowers spilled, as you've seen. This is about the third time. So if you sign it